بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم من إحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد. Here on what I want to talk about today is those new treatment intentions that I talked about in the previous video. Now some people may find that those intentions, the way I did it, reading all 7 at the same time, maybe wasn't very effective for you. Okay, so if that's the case, then you can try this methodology, this 3-stage methodology or method, using the same intentions, but using them in different stages, and included in that using different diagnosis techniques as well, to work out what exactly is happening. When you complete one stage, you move to the next stage, and then you finally do the last stage, the 3rd stage. So if you're one of those people who have that problem, that who seem to find that the way in the previous video it wasn't really working for you, then you can use this methodology. We had one case where one brother, he realized that all of the jinn that he was dealing with in those networks, they all didn't die before the networks were cut off. So just like we had with the the previous videos with regards to killing the king jinn and dealing with the king jinn and the king jinn network, you find that sometimes some of the jinn will survive and then they'll reattach themselves to the patient. So if you use this method, inshallah ta'ala, that problem shouldn't happen again. But I have to stress this. I have to stress something here. What I'm going to describe here is not for everybody. Not everybody will be able to do this, because they will get confused with it and they won't know how to do this properly. And they might, if they're not competent in doing specific Ruqya diagnosis and are not really familiar with my methods, then I don't advise you to do this. What I would advise you to do is just stick to what I said previously and just keep reading those intentions, those 7 intentions, until inshallah ta'ala you're clear of everything. So again, this is only for those patients who are competent in specific Ruqya diagnosis. If you're not, then I don't advise you to do this. Okay. Now, let's just point out one thing. I mean, these changes, these improvements that I do to the methodology, and these intentions, in fact, they all primarily come from the results of Ruqya diagnosis. I'm not just making this stuff up, as some people might think. No, we've got Ruqya diagnosis, got feedback from students, from patients, and the problems they have, and then what they're facing, and then we make up the intentions from that. So that's how we get these intentions. It's not just like we're just making intentions as we go along or making up as we go along. No, it's not like that. We're using specific Ruqya diagnosis, we get some results, and then from those results we come up with a new treatment plan, you see. So I mean, if it weren't for specific Ruqya diagnosis, then we wouldn't know that some of the patients are being attacked by Iblis. This would never be known. We only know that because we've done a diagnosis, when we see that there's something strange happening. There seems to be a jinn which is surviving all the time and it's not dying, and it seems to be running the show. So when we do the diagnosis, and then the patients will tell you, well, I'm getting attacked by a specific big jinn, ifrit, and then they work out it's Iblis, you see. So I mean, so we would not know that the patients were being attacked by Iblis if it weren't for specific Ruqya diagnosis, you see. And that's why we added the Iblis into the intentions, is because we got that information from specific Ruqya diagnosis and what the patients were going through. And if it weren't for specific Ruqya diagnosis, we wouldn't know that that some of the jinn survived these when we do the diagnosis. So when the patient gets, oh, I got sihr again, or I've got it again, and I've realized that some of the jinn, they didn't die from the previous treatment I did. I said, okay, so then we have to change something here. So yeah, and hence this is why we've got this methodology of doing a three-stage methodology here. Again, this could not be done and I wouldn't have suggested this if we didn't have this feedback from patients' diagnosis, their specific Ruqya diagnosis. Okay, alhamdulillah. Let's look at, so we're going to use the same intentions that I talked about in the previous video, with the new intentions. Those same intentions. So make sure you have them close by, or make sure you know them, for you to understand what we are talking about here. Because I'm going to refer to the intentions as intentions 1, 2, 3, 4, and if you don't know what they are, then because I'm not going to repeat myself and explain to you what those intentions are. You should know what those intentions are, because you should have watched the previous video. Okay. So the first stage will be, you have to check yourself if you are possessed by a jinn that you know of or you don't know of. Just check yourself. Do that Ruqya diagnosis, and you use Surah Falaq. You use Surah Nas. You come to the last ayah, Mina Jinnati wan Nas, and you repeat that ayah. That last ayah of Surah. You do check in for any jinn possession that you have, with jinn you know of and jinns you don't know of. You're not aware of that. You've got them. Okay, if you get a positive result for that, move on to the next one. Next diagnosis would be, check if you are connected to jinn in networks known to you or unknown to you, directly or indirectly. So those networks, as we described in the previous video, see if you've got jinn in those networks. And remember, they could be jinns that you are in completely new diseases that you don't even know of, and I don't even know of, that nobody knows of. So you could be connected to some jinn which are in some network which you're not even sure of. And as one patient recently, said to me, Said, I believe that these things are it's like a system. And I said to him, you're right, brother, that's correct. It's a system out there, all run by Iblis, and it's all connected to each other. So one part of the network crashes, then they've got other networks and other jinn to come over and take over. You see, so I said, well done, brother. If you see it like that, that's how it should be seen. That it's a whole system. Even though we talk about separate networks, it's a whole system out there which works together. So we should see it like that as well. Don't see them as separate, independent things which don't help each other. No, these jinns are all helping each other, and if they can help each other, they will help each other to destroy you. You see, so you should see it as that, like it's a whole system run by Iblis. Event, at the end of it, it's all run by Iblis and his big army and his main jinn, basically. So you check yourself if you are connected to indirectly or directly to any of these jinn out there, in these known spiritual diseases or unknown spiritual diseases. Okay, and again, you use Surah Nas, come to that last ayah, keep repeating it. You get a reaction, then you are connected. So now you got 2 positive results. You got jinn inside you for sure. Okay, you got and you got jinn out there as well. You're connected to them as well. Indirectly or directly. And it could be king jinn, master jinn, whatever it is, you're connected to them. So what you would do now, next stage, you use treatment intentions 1 and 2. Okay, you use treatment intentions 1 and 2, and you read, you do your treatment. And what you do, your treatment would be, and remember, so intentions 1 and 2, I can't repeat them here because we haven't got really time. Go back to the previous video, looking at those new intentions for treatment, and it will be intentions 1 and 2. You'll be reading them, having that intention in your heart, those 2 intentions in your heart, and you read Surah Falaq and Nas. Okay, you might have to read them for some patients, it's only about 10 minutes they read them for, and they all get wiped out. However, you might have to read for a long time, depending. Again, this will be dependent on your iman, depending on the sins, depending on the affliction itself, how severe it is as well. You see, if you find that it's not working for you, then what I would say to you, if you're Ruqya, you're not getting anything for that, it's taken a long time, look at yourself. Have you got sins? You'll be amazed that some people are falling into sins, they don't even know they've got sins. I recently dealt with a sister who had who's wearing proper hijab. Okay, she doesn't follow the opinion of you have to cover your face and cover your hands. That's no problem. Okay, difference of opinions. Okay, on this. Okay, so, but she was not wearing socks, so her feet would be exposed. She would wear sandals, and you can see her feet and ankles. And I said, no, you got to cover that, sister. You cannot be going out like that. And so, been going out like that for years, maybe, and I don't see it as a sin. So, something simple as that going on could be causing a problem. You see. That's what could be causing a problem. Yeah, some people don't see that. Some sisters sadly don't see that as a sin, and then but it causes a problem. You see, brothers, for instance, they don't see maybe sometimes even shaving the beard. Maybe they might agree with you that it's haram, but they don't agree with trimming the beard. Now, trimming the beard again, haram. You cannot trim your beard. You got to let it grow. If you've got a beard like me which doesn't grow much and it just stays where it is, fine, then okay. You know, and we shouldn't assume that you trim your beard. But what I do with brothers like that, I see brothers who are not black. I'm black, so generally brothers who are black or Somali, as I am, our beards are not going to grow, long like maybe a Pakistani brother or Bangladeshi brother. We're not going to find, beards which are long. You see, so, but we need to ask. So you see a brother, especially with a Pakistani brother or Bangladeshi brother who's not got the beard's not very long, then you should ask, it's brother, are you, if you don't mind me asking, are you trimming your beard? And sometimes you might find that that's the case. You see, I'm dealing with one brother recently and he's got a lot of problems. And I said to him, you know what, brother, I won't be surprised if all of the problems you're complaining about is just because you keep trimming your beard. I won't be surprised about that, so, these things are problems. So, but anyway, let's just go to generally. So if you've got sins, then you must get rid of them before you do any of these treatments, really. If you've got sins, then a diagnosis won't really work for you as well. So you do the diagnosis, you do the treatment, and what we have found that you use Surah Falaq and Nas, and you keep reading Surah Falaq and Nas, until you might hit. What happens is that while you're reading Surah Falaq and Nas with the intention of killing all the jinn inside you, that you know of and you don't know of, and killing all those jinn in those networks, you might find that you're reading the Ruqya, and while you're reading the Ruqya, you have a little jerk like that, okay? And now that might be your sign that all of the jinn are dead, meaning the jinn in those networks and the jinn inside you. So what you would do then, you would do a diagnosis, okay? You do a diagnosis to see if all of the jinn are dead. Okay, you check to see all the jinn are dead. But what you need to do when you do this diagnosis, you have to remember something. New jinn could have entered you while you're actually doing the diagnosis, or maybe you took a little pause during your diagnosis, during your treatment. You took a little pause, you drank some water, went to the toilet, and you came back and you carried on. Now, in that period where you took a little break for 5 minutes, new jinn could have entered you, and new jinn could have entered the network. So when you do the diagnosis, which is important, you see, you don't want to get deceived by shaitan here, you see, and you'll make a mistake with the diagnosis. You've got when you do the diagnosis to check, imagine you've got that reaction, okay, that that was that's something different while you were doing your treatment, because usually during treatment you shouldn't get any reactions. That's what we found, and that's because you're asking Allah for the cure, basically. So you won't have any reactions during treatment. During diagnosis, you'll get reactions because you're asking Allah to show me, give me reactions, and you'll get reactions. But during treatment, you're not really asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. So if you get that reaction while you're reading the treatment, it means you get some reactions during the treatment, but you're not going to get the same reactions as you do during diagnosis. So if you get that jump or that feeling you get, or maybe while your eyes are closed, if you are someone who likes to close their eyes while you're doing treatment, you can do that if you want. Okay, you might feel something, you might feel pain or something like that. It might be some sort of sign during your treatment. It might not necessarily be a jump. It might be a shake. It might be a vibration. You might get a little bit of a headache. You might feel like you want to vomit. You'll get some sort of reaction during your treatment, okay, which might stand out. That might be your sign that all of the jinn are dead. Okay, so what you would do, then you will do a diagnosis asking Allah to show you if all of the jinn are dead that you were connected to. Okay. That you were, all of the jinn that you when you did your diagnosis to see if you were connected to any jinn in the networks and any jinn, okay. You ask Allah to show if all those jinns are diagnosed, are they all dead? Those ones that are previously diagnosed, are they all dead? And plus any new jinn which might have entered my body, or any new jinn which entered the network while I was doing treatment, So you're asking Allah to show me if all of the jinn are dead, basically. You see, that's the important part, because you might have got, like I said, you might have had some jinn which have gone inside you while you took their little break during your treatment, or you could have had jinn enter the network, new jinn enter the network during your little break, or maybe even during treatment. We can't say that's impossible. That they might, even while you're doing your treatment, they see that they're getting attacked, so they all try to help each other more. You see, and then that can happen. So when you do this diagnosis, you're asking Allah to show you that all of the jinn that are inside you and in the networks. If there are any new ones as well which came in while I was doing my treatment, or since that diagnosis I did to check in there if I was connected to any jinn or had any jinn inside me. Since that time, if there are any new jinn as well, are they all dead as well? Basically, that's what your intention is when you do that. And if you do that diagnosis and you get a reaction, all of the jinn are dead, meaning the ones inside you and all the ones outside, then you can move on to the next stage. Okay, now we're doing stage 2. Okay. So stage 2, you check to see if you are connected to any external spiritual networks. So all of the jinn are dead. So now we're doing check basically the lines out there, those networks out there. You know, you're checking to see if you're connected to any. And what you will use there, you use all of Surah Falaq and Nas to check that. So you read all of Surah Falaq and Nas. You don't just not a specific ayah now. It's all of Surah Falaq and Nas to see if you are connected to any networks. And the reason you use all of Surah Falaq and Nas is because you might have different networks. Hasad, Ayn, different. Might not just be one particular network that you've got. So you read all of them, okay? Because you haven't done a diagnosis to see what exactly you are connected to. And you don't really have to here. Okay, so you read Surah Falaq and Nas to see if you are connected to any external spiritual networks. Okay? If you get a reaction for that, then you move on to the next one. So you are connected to any external networks. Right, next. You check to see if you are connected, if you have any internal networks. Check if you've got any internal networks. You might have some internal networks inside there. The jinn may be all dead, but they might be all connected to each other. There might be some networks inside you. So check. If you get a positive, again, using all of Surah Falaq and Nas to check if you've got any internal networks inside you. Okay. Next thing you can do, next diagnosis you can do is check if you've got any external spiritual networks directly. You are directly connected to Iblis through any of these networks that you've got. Are you connected directly to him with a direct line going to him? Sometimes we've had patients, who've got this direct line to him. You see if you've got anything like that. Any direct line. See if you've got any direct line to Iblis himself. Okay. Then if you get a reaction, and again using all Surah Falaq Nas, then check to see if you have any external networks indirectly going to Iblis as well. You can check for that as well. You see. Again, all of using all Surah Falaq and Nas to do that check. Then you check to see if you have any networks from any external networks from Iblis inside you that is placed inside you. Any networks inside your body. Okay, and if you get a positive result, then fine. If you get any negative result for these, fine. Note it down. But you can still use intentions number 6 and 3 to do your treatment for this stage. So whatever the results are for that, you can just use intention 6 and 3 for this stage. Just use intention 6 and 3. Okay, use intention 6 and 3 for this stage. So you keep doing that treatment. And you do that treatment, again, you might get a reaction. Something might happen and make you realize that, oh, I felt something. Maybe there's something has happened here. You see. In that situation, then you'll do a diagnosis. You do a diagnosis to see what's going on. To see if all of the networks have been cut off, basically. You see, to see all of the networks are basically gone. That's what you need to check. So you check to see if all of the networks are gone, basically. Right. So let me go back to that. So we finished. So you've done the treatment. So let's go back to this. So maybe I need to repeat this part again because I haven't told you how to actually do the diagnosis. Let's say this again. So so stage 2, you use intention 6 and 3, and you keep doing that until you get your sign that there is something there. So something has happened. Headache, you might jerk, you might feel something might happen to show you that that intention 6 and 3 have been completed. It's been completed. The treatment for that has been completed. Okay? Dave. So then you go on to stage 3. Now stage 3, what you do here, so what you might be left with now is that all of the networks have been disconnected. Okay, all of the networks have been disconnected, so there's no connection between you and any networks. All right, and inside you there are no networks as well inside you. What you've just left with now is just spiritual diseases. You might have you'll have dead jinn inside you as well. Okay, you'll have dead jinn maybe inside you as well, and you will have and some ain and some spiritual diseases, but there are no networks connecting them all up together. Okay, in order to check if that's the case, that the networks have gone, you got your sign, but you're not sure if that's the case, then you will do a diagnosis to ask Allah to show you, or Allah show me or give me a reaction if my spiritual diseases or disease, because it could be one, are without external networks. So you're asking Allah, so you got your spiritual diseases maybe inside you, so you're asking Allah to make these spiritual diseases react if they're without networks. They've got no networks. So I mean, if you get a reaction, that's your evidence to say that the diseases, they don't have any networks, internal or external, basically. You see, or you can separate that diagnosis. You could just deal with the external first of all. Allah show me, or Allah give me a reaction. In this situation, you can say, or Allah give me a reaction if my spiritual diseases are without any external networks. No external networks for the spiritual diseases. Okay, there are no external networks. So meaning you want the spiritual disease in your body to give you a reaction if they have no networks, no external networks. طيب. Next diagnosis, you will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala show you if the spiritual diseases inside your body don't have any internal networks. Okay? So then you do the diagnosis, ask Allah give me a reaction if my spiritual diseases or disease, because you might just have one, are without internal networks. So those, even like for instance the dead jinn inside you, they're not connected to any other jinn inside the body. There's no networks there's no complicated network inside your body. You just have these separate kind of, you can see the sign of blobs or dead jinn areas where you've got spiritual diseases, but there's no interconnections between them. You see? So you ask Allah, give me a reaction, meaning reaction from the spiritual disease inside your body, if my diseases are without any internal networks. You get a reaction for that, you start reacting for that, some sort of reaction, then you know that you've got no internal network. So now you will know from this stage that you've finished. Okay, this is the stage 3, that you know that stage 2, the treatment you did in stage 2 was successful, in the sense that there's no more internal networks, they're disconnected from you, destroyed. External networks, so no more external networks, they're destroyed. And inside you as well, there are no internal networks as well. They're all gone as well, alhamdulillah. طيب. So then you will do treatment, and you use intentions 4 and 5. You use intentions 4 and 5, those new intentions, and you just keep reading them until you get, what will happen maybe is that you might feel something, you might not feel anything. What will possibly happen here is that you'll read, and you might have to read for a long time. Again, this will depend on the person's iman, understanding of tawheed, and the issue of sins. You see, and the issue of even understanding what they're doing, because you find that some people don't really understand what they're doing with the intentions. They don't understand the intentions, so it doesn't really work, because you're not really understood what you're doing. You see, so. But anyway, let's go back to somebody who understands what they do, and they understand intentions 4 and 5. They keep repeating them, and they keep reading Surah Falaq and Nas with those intentions 4 and 5. Okay, they'll keep reading until they feel that maybe they might get some sort of reaction showing that I felt something, or I feel completely different, or it might be the fact that they don't feel anything, and they're reading for about a few hours, maybe even a few days, and then they feel something. There's no more reactions. I don't feel absolutely anything. You see, and if that's the case, then what we will suggest to them is that they do a final diagnosis, and they do a diagnosis here, and they'll ask Allah, Allah, show me if I have any spiritual disease that I know of or I don't know of. And now in this one, you should get no reactions for this, because you're asking Allah, show me if I have any spiritual diseases. It's different from the previous ones which I was talking about, where I talked about give me a reaction if the spiritual disease has no networks. There we're asking for a reaction. We want a reaction. proves to us that the spiritual disease is without a network. It's still inside you because you're reacting. You've got spiritual disease. But that spiritual disease doesn't have a network, you see. However, this last diagnosis I'm talking about right now, this one would be a diagnosis. You're doing like a kind of general diagnosis, asking to show me if I've got any spiritual disease that I know of or I don't know of. And you're reading sort of like a nas, and you read for about 20 to 30 minutes. You're reading. And if you get no reactions, it means that there's no spiritual disease. You're clear of everything. And I would suggest that you do that for 2-3 days. Just making sure, and the longer you can read, the better. Half an hour, I would say. Read for half an hour over 2 to 3 days. And if you get no reactions, then we can say, alhamdulillah, that you're cured. You see. There you go. Now I've got some little diagrams. I hope they come up. I hope that you can see them. I hope that you'll be able to see them, inshallah ta'ala. Let me just, okay, I'll try and explain what I meant by it. Now, if you look at that first, if you can see the first diagram at the top there, you can see that's basically a person with the spiritual diseases. That's basically before stage 1, or at the beginning of stage 1. And at the beginning of stage 1, you see the person has these networks outside. They have the networks, and they've got the jinns in the network. The J meaning there's jinn there, and they were indirectly and directly connected to some jinn. Okay, and this is like direct connections, and then you got jinns which are indirectly connected. You see, okay. Then you got the patient with the spiritual diseases and some internal networks and some jinn inside. Okay, so the person after stage 1, they will ask Allah to kill all the jinn inside him, meaning the J is inside the line, those J's, those letter J's, killing all of the jinn. And then what will happen? This will happen, basically. You'll get this stage where all of the jinn in the networks are dead, and basically the jinn inside are dead. You know, the dead bodies might still be there, and there might even be dead bodies in the networks. But anyway, they just shows it that they're all dead. Basically, they're not going to be a problem to you anymore. Okay, the dead bodies can be a problem, as we see with some patients. Okay, but that's basically gone. You still got networks, and you still got internal networks, and you still got spiritual diseases inside there. You see, the next stage will be to get rid of these lines. Get rid of these lines, these basically which are the networks itself. Okay, and that will be the next stage. And that will be like that, basically. So the person, you can see they've lost all those external networks. Okay, they've lost those external networks, and they've lost basically inside as well. There's no networks inside. So this will be like the Ruqya of the final stage, and they will do Ruqya to basically get rid of the dead jinn inside them and get rid of those spiritual diseases inside them. You see, which are inside them there, and they carry on doing the Ruqya until they clear that, basically. And then finally, when they do that final diagnosis, it will be something like this, you know. And when they do a Ruqya diagnosis for this, there should be no reactions. Why? Because there's no spiritual diseases. If there are no spiritual diseases, you shouldn't get any reactions, really. If you get reactions at this stage, that means there is a spiritual disease. Mustn't get confused with that. We get some people when they do this last stage and they get, you know, or when they get, I'm cured side from sihr. So what was your reaction? Oh, I asked Allah to show me if I've got any sihr. And I start, or show me if there's no sihr. And then they start reacting and say, brother, there's still something there. You've got something. You shouldn't have any reactions when you're on your final stage. There should be no reactions. So when you do this last final diagnosis, you know, there should be no reactions. When you ask Allah, show me if there are any spiritual diseases, known or unknown. There should be no reactions. If you get no reactions, alhamdulillah, it means that you're cured. Dave, I hope those little diagrams helped you understand what's going on. And like I said at the beginning of this video, this is really only for those brothers and sisters who are competent in doing specific Ruqya diagnosis, who have followed me for a few years and understand when I talk about specific Ruqya diagnosis. They watch the other videos, they've read the articles, they've even read the article 7 Rules of Specific Ruqya, so they don't get confused about these sort of things, you know. But if you're not somebody who's really known, who understands this issue of a specific Ruqya diagnosis, then my advice to you would not to do this, and really this, you know, mean, you can try. I mean, if you can do the reading and understand the issue, then tafaddal, there's nothing wrong if you try and do it. What I'm saying is primarily I made this video is for those brothers and sisters who are competent in using specific ruqya diagnosis, and those brothers and sisters who have had some problems, and they also have problems when just using those 7 intentions, they found that, hey, there was some jinn still surviving and I'm not getting cured straight away. So then I would advise you to break it down into these stages, and you might find that this inshallah ta'ala helps you. طيب, okay. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.